Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is the 49 days of CBC. If you've not heard about this, where have you been? You've been under some rock somewhere hiding. Today we have a CBC legend, Mr. Johnny Melton. If you've not been around camp for a few years, you may not know his history and everything, but I've heard some funny stories and that he can tell some funny stories. But I've known him for about 30 years, like I said, and it's just a joy to get to spend a few minutes with you, Mr. Johnny. I know that you love the Carolina Bible Camp. You put your heart and soul in it over the years, and I for one, appreciate that, and look forward to hearing you talk about CBC today. So I guess the first question I'll ask you is, so what's it feel like not to be at camp right now?
Well, it's a big disappointment. I've got some heavy, my heart is heavy because this is the first time in 47 years that I will not be at Carolina Bible Camp. And so I saw Kevin Lady's post about he started in 2009 at week 2, and I actually thought that I'd started back at 2009, but I realized later that it was 2010, the first time that I went to week 2, coming from here in Danville,
Right.
and working with David Allgood.
Right.
And the first summer that I was preaching here in Danville, 2009, I didn't have any kids who would go to camp with me. And so the next year, I was able to get some youngsters to go, and I needed to go to a junior week or a mixed week.
Right.
And so we did that. I've been going ever since I left the Carolinas in 1995. I've been coming back each year to work with Dennis in week 6.
Right.
And so I've had that experience. But since 2010, I've worked week 2 as well as week 6. And it's just been a joy to be able to be back where I can bring kids and promote camp. We tried to do that from a distance and kept my kids involved in camp while we lived in Mississippi and Indiana.
Oh, wow.
But I did start it in 1973.
1973. So how many different camp locations have you seen then over the years?
Well, everything except the very first one. We started off at Camp Thunderbird, and then moved up to Camp Haynes. And so I was at Camp Haynes until we moved to Camp Kanata, and then you have to get Jeffrey Sykes to explain to you each year and each of the different venues. But I've been to all of them since Camp Haynes. And so a couple of them, I'm glad that we just were there for 2 seasons. But I was excited about, being a part of the board that made the decision to purchase the land and to develop the present site.
Right.
And so that's been one of the highlights of my life, to be able to work with Carolina Bible Camp in developing its own property.
Well, I thank you. I know what the decisions the board has to make now. I couldn't imagine the decisions y'all had to make way back then on purchasing the land and everything. I thank you for doing that.
Well, I understand that some of your board meetings can be, you have a lot of issues, and you have to work through a lot of things. Some of those earlier board meetings when we had a restriction on the number of people that could be in the board, and we had or on the board, and we had to do some serious negotiating at times to make some decisions. And so I'm grateful to all those men that served, Ed Hill and Wilson Burton and HR and Sam Norman even.
Yes.
You know, they all played a significant role. Howard Winters was my mentor, and I suspect it's because of Howard that I came back to camp. I came to camp in 1973. I just moved to Fairfield, North Carolina as a preacher. And they put me in a camp, in a cabin of 12-year-olds. And I had a couple of 12-year-olds that, I'm surprised that I survived them and that they survived me.
I've had something like that, yeah.
But I can tell you that first summer, the first week, is the only week that I ever spent as a counselor. And when the week was over, Howard was education director, and he took me aside and he said, "I need you to come back and teach." I said, "Well, I can come back and teach, I think, but it's I don't want to go back in the cabin and be responsible for those kids." And he said, "All right." So now we were at Campaigns, and I lived in Fairfield, North Carolina, and that's 80 miles beyond Greenville, North Carolina.
Okay.
So we drove all day to get back home, and I had to get permission from the men to go back to camp, and they would let me go back to camp if I stayed on Sunday and preached both services. We had Sunday night service at 8:00, and so we preached, and then we had a baptism. I actually ended up with 2 baptisms, but we didn't have a baptistry, so we had to go to Pike Road, North Carolina, to fill up the baptistry there out of a well with a very slow pump. It could be a long story. I'll shorten it down. I left about 11:00 on Sunday night and got back to camp about 4:00.
Oh. Uh-oh. I lost you, Mr. Johnny. Come back. Let's see if he comes back here. I'm going to pause this. And you froze up on me.
Okay.
You're back now.
About that.
That's all right. So you made it back to camp about 4 a.m.?
Yeah. And was tired for the whole week, rest of the week. But it was a great week and a great experience. And the next year, HR asked me to come back as assistant director. And so I joined the staff in 74. And about 2 or 3 years after that, Howard turned the education to department over to me. And so I was education director, 10, 15 years. And we just had a great time. We did 2 weeks of camp, and then we did 3 weeks of camp. And when HR was directing, he kept his staff together, the education director, the athletic director, handcraft director. He kept us all, and we worked all 3 weeks. So until 1995, from 73 to 95, I worked every single week of camp.
Oh, my goodness.
2 weeks and then 3 weeks. I saw a post I put up in 2012, I guess it was, that said that I had, or maybe it was 2010, when I was starting back at second week, but that I had gone to Carolina Bible Camp for 75 weeks. And that was in 2010. And so it certainly has shaped me, formed me in many ways. HR Butler, a dear friend, but Dennis Connor and Jeffrey Sykes, especially, those 2 guys, it's been just a joy to be able to work with them. Dennis and Jeffrey were both campers my first summer. They've been going to camp longer than I have, consecutively. But I've been a staff member longer than either of them. And I hold that over their heads.
You remind them of that, huh?
I do. I do. And I will tell you this, one of the delights of my camp experience was Dennis, when he was a camper that last year in 73, he won the boys ping pong championship, got the first place ribbon. And on Saturday morning, before we left, he wanted to play ping pong.
Wait a second. Your sound's gone again.
Are you back?
Yeah, you're back. We're recording again.
Okay. Well, after Dennis got his ribbon in the award ceremony, we went down to the rec area and played a game of ping pong. And I beat him. And frankly, I think that's probably the last time I ever beat him. But I did beat him on the day that he got his ribbon for winning the boys championship. So I put that in my pocket and hold that as another one of the highlights of camp.
Well, let me ask you this. With all of your experience, you probably can't come down just to one memory, but you want to share one of your favorite memories of camp?
Oh, yeah, probably my favorite memory is when I baptized my daughter, Carrie Ann, at Bible camp. I didn't get to baptize my son Jamie, and I didn't baptize Jonathan. I think Jonathan was baptized at camp, but he made that decision when I was not there. And Carrie Ann, I always had the fear that I would have too much influence on my children to get them to obey the gospel because that's what I wanted them to do.
Right.
And so I had, someone else counsel her and talk with her, but I did get to baptize her, and so that is a precious memory. I got to baptize a lot of people because that first summer, Howard turned the baptizing over to me. And so just about every camper that was baptized from 73, for the next dozen years, unless they specifically requested another counselor or someone to baptize them, then I did the baptizing. And that was, that's always been a great joy.
It's humbling, isn't it, to be part of that special occasion with folks?
Sure, yeah. And I see others now. I turned that responsibility over to other people, and but I know the joy that comes from that. And, that's what we've always tried to be about, teaching and influencing people.
Right.
But in those early days, I told a lot of Jerry Clower stories.
I've heard about this.
I had people actually think that I was Jerry Clower, and so I've not told many Jerry Clower stories in a long time, but every now and again I'll run across somebody that's 45, 50 years old, and they'll want me to do Knock 'em Out, John. And
I was just thinking of that.
That's what they remember about me, and I guess it's good to be remembered for anything.
Yes, sir.
But I don't know if you can see over my head here, but on my wall back here,
yes, sir,
is my Carolina Bible Camp display.
All right.
I got some photos. Got a plaque there. I don't know who made those plaques, but they were a fundraiser that we sold Carolina Bible Camp plaques. And there was a guy from Fayetteville by the name of Bob Ray, who was a bit of an artist, and he did some chalk drawings of the softball field up on at Camp Haynes. And then Jeff's taken a couple of snapshots of me teaching. I've taught Bible classes in the Hexa Gazebo ever since there was a Hexa Gazebo. And
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
No, I'm grateful for the fact that the younger guys, the weeks that I attend, concede the Hexa Gazebo to me, and that way I don't have as far to walk.
Yes.
And we did have a few years where walking was not easy. I had knee replacements and hip replacements, and so just being able to walk up the hill,
right,
is a challenge. So I'm grateful for golf carts.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, with all of your years' experience and just the joy of working at camp, if you were going to have a talk with a kid and it was his first time coming to camp, how would you present it to him?
I've I would tell him that camp is about people. It is about making friends in a spiritual atmosphere. Bible is our middle name, and so there's going to be an emphasis on that. But we're there to have fun. And C.R. Franks was athletic director for a great number of years, and C.R. used to say that you can teach more biblical principles in sports, the athletic field, than in the classroom. And he made some preachers mad because they thought they were doing a pretty good job of teaching. But my experience is that you learn more Bible principles in play and the activities in learning to be kind and considerate of people in the dining hall, all kinds of interactions in the cabins. So I tell them, get prepared for the best week of your life. Right. And it will be something. I came one time thinking that would be my one time. And I did go to camp one year as a kid. My family lived in South Carolina, and I went to Palmetto Bible Camp.
Right.
And I didn't go back. Not that I didn't want to. It was I was a rising junior, and I went to work instead of going back to camp. But that one summer in '73, I met people, and I had people to interact with me in such a way that there was just no question the next year that I would go back. And then when I moved to South Carolina a year later in '74, I told the elders of the church where I went. They went to Palmetto Camp. I said, I'll go to Palmetto Camp. That's in June. But I'm going, if I have to take my vacation, I'm going to go back to Carolina Bible Camp. And so from '74 to like '75, I went to both camps.
Oh, right.
And worked with churches that supported Palmetto Camp primarily, but I went back to Carolina Camp. So my experience is that if you ever go once, you'll want to go back again, and you'll make friends that will stand by you and be with you for the rest of your life if you let them. And that's certainly been the case with Jeffrey and Jonathan Seaman and certainly Dennis Connor and a great number of other folks that have been a true blessing to me.
Well, this last question that I have for you is going to be a real tough one for you to answer. I know with just since you've been talking this evening, talking about some people that I can remember, Sam Norman and H.R. Butler, meeting them for the first time when I started going to church with Melissa down here in Charlotte at Archdale. And but I want to ask you this tough question, put you on the spot. If you have one person, you probably can't just say one, and I understand that. If you had one person that's made an impression on you that's lasted your lifetime, who would that person be? That is
right now. That one person would be Howard Winters. Howard was the best man I've ever known.
Oh, wow.
tell you just one thing that demonstrates his character and his love for camp. He and I served on the board together, and for a number of years, especially early on, we had a policy at Carolina Bible Camp that we would not accept contributions from churches. We would take individual contributions, and churches could encourage their members to contribute individually. But if a church wrote us a check out of their treasury, we sent it back to them.
Oh, wow.
And part of that is the controversy over institutionalism, non-institutional stuff back in the 50s. And so that was a policy. And I thought that it was an outdated policy, and I thought that it was a wrong-headed policy. And so I made a motion in the board that we would not solicit funds from churches directly, but if churches sent us funds, we would accept them. Mm. And so you make a motion in one board meeting, and because I don't remember if that was changing the bylaws or whatever, but at any rate, we had to make the vote on it the next board meeting.
Okay.
And at the next board meeting, my motion failed by a very close vote. We did change that policy a little later on, but it failed that day. And after the meeting, Howard reached in his coat pocket and he pulled out a letter and he handed it to me. And it was his resignation letter. Had that motion passed, he would have, because of conscience, resigned the board. He did not argue against it. He did not tell me anything about his, commitments. I knew theoretically, that he opposed it, but I had no idea that it went that deep.
Right.
But my point is that he would not have stood in the way of Carolina Bible Camp doing what the rest of us thought was the right thing to do. He wouldn't continue in leadership because he couldn't violate his conscience. But you don't find many people like that. I mean, you just don't find people of that kind of character.
Standing on their principles.
Yeah. And so, that taught me just a tremendous amount. And Howard died when he was 58. I'm 68. I've lived 10 years longer than he did. I'm not the man, and never will be, that he was. He and I settled a lot of the world's problems and a lot of church problems in staff camp, in a staff cabin. His bed was next to mine, and we talked into the wee hours of the morning. So if there's one person that I associate with Carolina Bible Camp more than any other, besides that, he ran the canteen after he gave me the education directorship.
Right.
He took over the canteen, and you can look at me and tell that I like the canteen.
Melissa just sent me a message, and she said, Howard was one of the most gentle souls I've ever known, with the best smile.
He did have a great smile.
Well, Johnny, it's been a true honor to sit here and talk with you. And I imagine it would be good to have a historical record about Carolina Bible Camp from you and others like Jeff and Dennis, just so people my age and younger can know the history and really appreciate what everybody's done for us to have the place that we have today. And brother, I appreciate everything you've done. I've learned a lot about you today that I didn't know. And I know that you've impacted young souls for years now. And I pray that you have many more years to serve and to do that. And so my last question for you is, if you have one thing to say to the campers that weren't able to come this year because of the coronavirus and everything, what would that be that you would want to say to them?
Put it on your schedule for next year, and this year doesn't count.
This year doesn't count. Get them
when Jeffrey and Dennis and I get back next year, we will still be maintaining our consecutive streak of years of service at Carolina Bible Camp. We will simply skip this year, but we'll move from whatever the last encampment was to the next encampment. It'll be the 65th, or I don't remember what it is, but maintain that consecutive streak. And so put it on your calendar and plan to be a part of Carolina Bible Camp, whatever week you come.
Yes, sir.
Because each week has its own character and is doing a great work to build up the kingdom of God and young people everywhere. So we're excited about what Carolina Bible Camp has done, but even more excited about what it will do in the future.
Amen. Well, this has been the 49 days of CBC, and you've been a small part of that. You've given us a great time to hear the history of camp, and I think you'll probably be broadcasted on day 10 or 11. I'm getting mixed up in my head. I've done something. But
well,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you to you for your fundraising efforts. And we have raised money for a great number of projects over the years, and it takes money to run the camp. And so anybody that's listening that can, then I would encourage you to dig deeply and to contribute to Carolina Bible Camp to maintain what we've got and to look forward to what we can do.
Well, we're going to, probably in a couple of days, you're going to see an update on what the first week and a half has brought in so far. And I tell you, the supporters of Carolina Bible Camp, they are such giving people, and you can tell the love and care for this place by the response that we've had over the last week and a half. And I just appreciate you being part of this for so many years and providing insight on what's going on. And it's just a true blessing. And I thank you for that, brother.
I appreciate it. Great to talk to you.
Yes, sir. You take care of yourself.